Hello, and welcome back to another episode of My Pop 5, the show in which we bring on guests to break down 5 pieces of pop culture that had an influence on them or help shape them to become the creators and innovators that they are today. Today we have an awesome guest by the name of Dylan Adler. Dylan's a comedian, actor, and musician based in the New York area, and he was such a joy to have on the show. So without further ado, let's listen to our episode and conversation with Dylan Adler. Dylan Adler. I had the pleasure of seeing him out here in LA at a variety show performance, and he totally killed it. I was laughing nonstop, and since then have been such a huge fan. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you so much for saying that and for having me. I really appreciate that. That's very nice.
Yeah, I think especially here in LA, if I go to a lot of these, comedy outings, you can see a lot of similar stuff. There's incredible comedians and incredible artists, so this isn't disparaging any of those things, but you truly have a unique gift, a unique stage presence, and a unique show, right? It's not something that is your typical stand-up. It's not your typical musical performance, but you kind of combine all of the qualities. And so it's just, even when you're doing this stuff online, whether it's TikTok or your short form content or videos, like your style is so unique and it's so perfect.
Oh, thank you very much for saying that. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course. So let's go ahead and get into it, Dylan. Can you, like we have everyone do, list your Pop 5 with no comment, no context. What is your Pop 5?
Yes. My Pop 5, Wicked the Musical, That's So Raven, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Elton John, and then Alan Menken and Stephen Schwartz are my Pop 5.
This is a perfect Pop 5. It's so refreshing, I think. A lot of what I've realized when I'm booking this show is a lot of the people that I am drawn to and have interest in sometimes have a lot of similar interests with one another, like even though they may not know each other. And so when I get these ones that like have maybe something on the outskirts of that, and it's not just someone talking about Tom Waits again or something, it's nice,
Oh, yeah. That's great.
Yeah. So for the audience, can you tell Dylan a bit about your background and kind of how you got into the performance space and kind of what inspired you at the onset from your youth?
Yeah, absolutely. What really inspired me, I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
Me and my brother started playing piano when we were 6, when we were pretty young. Our mom got us into lessons.
And you're twins, right?
We're twins. We both identical gay twin brothers. We both played piano at the same. We did everything together. We did piano together. We did gymnastics, acrobatics together. We fell in love with music. Then when we grew older, I really wanted to film score. I wanted to go to school to become like a composer like Hans Zimmer, John Williams.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to NYU for music composition. And then it was there I really fell in love with musical theater and musical theater composing. And I'm like, actually, I really want to compose for musical theater and songwrite.
Yeah.
That's where I got obsessed with Alan Menken, Stephen Schwartz, Wicked, that whole deal. And Lin-Manuel Miranda. Then I really discovered comedy, doing improv jams at night where it's anyone can kind of do it at the People's Improv Theater and sometimes at UCB. And then I really got sucked into stand-up and improv and sketch. And I have been doing them ever since. And I was able to incorporate my love for music and musical theater into my comedy.
Yeah, man. And it's incredible. You mentioned being 6 when you first started piano and doing that stuff with your brother. Was there already music in your household? Were your parents musically inclined, or was this something that stemmed from an interest that you both had?
Oh, well, my mom can play by rote memory. She doesn't know how to read music, and she taught me how to play for Elise.
Oh, wow.
And my mom was like, we need to sign you up for lessons. And I was like, I already know how to play, Mom. You just taught me. But
I got this. I got for Elise down forever.
Mom, I'm literally Mozart right now. I don't know what the fuck you're saying. But she signed me and my brother up for lessons. The first one was forced. And then after the first one, we were like, oh my God, we love this.
Mm-hmm.
And we both got obsessed and we would fight over who got to practice. And we just loved piano.
That's awesome. And I think I saw a video recently where it looks like your brother just completed his recital, so it's like he continued with
Yes,
music throughout as well, right?
he did. He did. So he played piano, and then he really got into oboe,
Wow.
double reed. That's where he really thrived on that. And then he got into a conservatory doing that. And so now that was his grad degree recital, which he did in drag,
Yeah.
and it was really awesome. He played beautifully. He was a stunner.
Yeah, I am very familiar with that process just because I went through music school as well. So
Oh
I
my
very much
God.
empathize with the entire experience, of playing recitals, and just
Yeah.
the whole music school culture and stuff. It's so cool to see that both of you made it through because I think, especially with at least my school, there was like
Hmm.
100 majors or 200 majors that come in interested in their freshman years. And the people who graduate at the end, it's like 10, like it's just by the
Yeah,
end
yeah.
people fall
It's
out, and so making it through, it's awesome.
absolutely. Yeah, no, it was really inspiring and beautiful to see him still playing so beautifully and doing it all up in drag.
Yeah, no, it was so cool to see. Oh, and that's the other thing I was going to say too is I think music school or university and academia can be so hoity-toity, if you will, too. So the
Yeah,
fact
yeah,
that there
yeah, yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
that support and stuff is incredible as things are changing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it can be like, little homogenized and
Hmm.
super like, stuffy and like, no, we don't do that in classical music. But
uh
it's cool to see that little shift.
Yeah, totally. Well, let's go ahead and get into your first one here. You mentioned it, and it was in your time learning composition that you got into
Hmm.
Wicked. So tell me a bit about your experience with Wicked, how you
Yes.
came across Wicked, and what you love about it.
Oh my God. Okay. So Wicked was one of the first Broadway shows I ever saw. I
Oh,
saw it my
wow.
freshman year with my mom because she was in town. It's like, this is something to do. And I was truly just so inspired and so moved by the music, by the story. I think there was something really queer about the whole story.
Hmm.
And there's something also like just in like a lot of queer people in theater in general too. There's
Hmm.
something very queer about musical theater, very
Yeah.
gay. I just loved the story and music so much, and I left being like, oh my God, I want to create something like this, like the
Hmm.
music. And I think that was my experience with that show, because after that show, I really loved Miyazaki films and Joe
Hmm.
Hisaishi, his compositions. But then I really started to like dig into Stephen Schwartz and what was his deal. Who wrote that show? And I bought like books like Pippin book and the
Mm.
Wicked book to see like what the chords were like, and I was so inspired by just his musicality and the way he writes music. And yeah, I was really drawn to that show.
Yeah. So you mentioned you're early in university at this point, and you hadn't necessarily fallen in love with musical theater in
Hmm.
that way yet. So what were you working on artistically? Was it like just classical compositions, or what were you working on at the time?
Classical composition. I also tried to songwrite a little bit. I
Hmm.
wanted to songwrite too. Like, yeah, classical composition, film scoring. So I was listening to like John Williams scores and Hans Zimmer scores, Joe Hisaishi scores. But then I really discovered that, and I was like, that.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's so,
yeah.
I love when you find that thing and it just like hits your soul right where you need it,
Oh my God, it really hit it in a very specific, visceral place. And it's
Hmm.
like, I don't know why these are the words, but it's like, that's a gay person wrote that because that really hit me.
Yeah.
That really, it just felt so, the music
Yeah.
and the story and oh my God, it was so, it was really cool.
Yeah, this may be obvious, but I can't assume anything. Were you familiar with the Wizard of Oz lore and characters and stuff before you went in, or was it like an entirely new
Yeah,
story for you?
yeah, I was familiar with it.
So did you like when you came in, was that a helpful entry point, that you knew the world a little bit to that made you even want to buy the tickets in the first place? Because I'm curious since it was your
Yeah,
first Broadway show.
absolutely, absolutely. Oh wait, actually, that was I saw Pippin before that, so there were actually two Stephen Schwartz shows I saw like back to back. That was my first one. I did know the Wizard of Oz lore,
Yeah.
but also I've heard of the Wicked hype, and it's like it's a phenomenon, and like a lot of the popular, I know, I like knew that song. I saw like other shows like Cabaret, and I saw like Billy Elliot on tour before. So I'd seen some shows beforehand, but that show really like struck me.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the cast, the original cast when you saw them, or was it later?
The cast was not the original cast. I saw it November of 2014. So not the original cast. I'm still trying to I was looking up online who is the Alphaba, who is the Glinda. I have a picture with her, but it's so blurry you can't even see the thing. But they were truly incredible.
That's awesome. I had a chance. I've done pit orchestra work for various shows, and those songs I think are some of the ones that just stick with you so much. You already mentioned Popular, but I think One Short Day, for example, it's not even the best song in there, I don't think, but
it's really catchy. And
it's that one I'd be just, walking through Target and just one short day, and I'm just it feels it just feels that one's an earworm, it sticks with you so much. And then of course, I think the popularity of Defying Gravity, it was everywhere. It was kind of Let It Go for Frozen, where, do you think, I think one of the things that I love about this show is we talk about all the various influences. And I think as artists, you can kind of piece how all of them ended up being this influencing and shaping how you create, right? Yeah. What are some of the ways that you think today that this has impacted you and how you approach your creative process, whether it's through comedy or songwriting or composing or any of that stuff now?
Yes, I played the book from Wicked over and over. I would go to practice room, learn the chords, learn how he composed. So it really had a major impact about how I write music. Lyrically, musically, just the chords I use. People have said oh my God, it's very Stephen Schwartz-esque, this song is very... So I think when I composed musical theater songs, I was very directly influenced by that. And when I do musical comedy songs, I'm still influenced by that because when you write, your hands kind of lead you to the chords that kind of oh, where did that end up? And it's oh, I've been playing this Wicked book over and over again. It's kind of this kind of chord that he uses or this kind of progression. I think, I was very influenced by that in his songwriting.
Totally. And it shows, I think, in some of the things that you're talking about, where even if it's just melodic phrasing in terms of how where you're taking some of the vocal melodies. Or music theater, I think, is also so unique in that it, as a genre, there are a lot of tropes, just like you'd find in pop or hip hop music. You hear certain sounds and you're like, oh, this feels very musical theater, so it's great. Any final thoughts or memories or anything that you have with this show before we move on to your next topic?
Definitely something I was I want to replicate this feeling I'm feeling with what I create, with what Wicked did for me and how it hit me. So that's definitely something.
Yeah.
I felt I'm very inspired.
One last thing, sorry, I actually just remembered this, that I actually forgot. We didn't touch on the story too much, but one of the things that I love so much about the story is I think the overall theme of Wicked is the concept of having good intentions but having bad results versus someone who may have bad intentions and bad results, And so I'm curious if there were any story elements that resonated with you and outside of the music and performances.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that there was something I was really drawn to about this character who had this thing that, made everyone around her despise her and kind of hate her and go away from her. And I don't know if me, I was projecting a little bit, but being in the closet for so I was fresh out of the closet when I saw that show too. And me feeling this thing of that drew people away, which, did sometimes in high school and middle school and stuff. So I think that was a plot line that I really felt drawn, and also just the whole wickedness and being made to feel as though you are wicked and evil when looking at the actions of the people and the townsmen around them. They're the true wicked ones who pursued this person and made them, and something that I'm very interested in and drawn by, even unpacking in therapy, trying to not feel like a bad person and feel like inherent good that's in all of us. But sometimes society, whether it has to do with like racism, homophobia, sexism, made to feel inherently bad. And I think that was just like with Wicked, that was a theme story wise that I was extremely drawn to.
Yeah, totally. And it's proof that not nothing, but most things aren't inherently good or bad, and there's so much nuance behind it, right? And I think
a lot of nuance, and it was like the whole Wizard of Oz story flipped on its head, and that was what was accepted by our culture and society. It's like, no, here's a different story.
Yeah.
Stephen Schwartz likes to do that. He really loves to flip things on its head and be like, no, this is what's actually going on. Like there's a lyric in the story, it's like, a bunch of lies and blah, blah, blah. We call it history. It's like, yeah, what's taught to us in history is told by the people in power to make them look good. So... yeah, I was really drawn to that too.
Awesome. Well, beautiful, beautiful. Let's move on to the next one here. This one was so awesome for me because before we jump on this, the reason I have you guys send me what your pop 5 is before is I get the chance to go through and like watch it if I can or catch a few episodes of something like this. So going to this time capsule and seeing That's So Raven again was such a joy. Tell me about your intro to That's So Raven and why it was so impactful for you.
That's So Raven was me, my mom, and my brother's favorite show growing up. We TiVo'd it when TiVo was around. We were obsessed with it. Raven is just such a great comedic physical performer. She really, with the characters that she embodied, they were so larger than life and they were so big and physical, and she would do a lot of stunts, put on ridiculous wigs and suits, and that was something that me, my brother, and my mom were really drawn to. And I think looking back, it really informed the kind of comedy that I like to see and do, and be big, larger than life characters, crazy and stuff. Yeah, That's So Raven was very big. In class, I would say oh snap.
Oh yeah.
Or I would say her phrases in elementary school.
Yeah. For the audience, That's So Raven is a Disney Channel show featuring Raven-Symoné, and it's a show about a girl who has the ability to see things in the future, but it's generally a 5-second snippet. And so she's often miscalculating the events and then causing more trouble to herself. And every episode almost ends with her going into disguise to fix the problems that she's created or to try and avoid what she saw in the future.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was a great vehicle for her to do what she does best,
Yeah, and it's so crazy. It's one of those things where you don't know how to feel about it because it's created such great work, but you hear all this stuff about these Disney stars, but they found this talent in this child, who was just so incredible, but then she was running an entire show on her own at so young. And, you hear this about Disney Channel stars all the time.
Pressure. Oh my God. Could you imagine?
Every week.
On a kid.
I know.
Every fucking week. That's work. That is fucking work for a kid. That's so much fucking work.
I helped on one set. My buddy's a director for, one of his shoots. And I'm after 2 days, I'm all right, I don't know if I want to do that anymore. These kids are doing it 16-hour days for weeks, Yeah.
Holy shit. And the pressure from the studios and, you're hearing a lot of things in your ear. And, it's when you're responsible for so many people's money as a teenager, I lost my wallet. Holy shit, yeah.
It's so crazy. I also love the side characters in the show as well. Eddie, Chelsea, Corey, even her parents, they all had such good performances. I was reminded just watching again, how incredible all of them were comedically. Chelsea and Eddie had their own types of humor, but it was just it was perfect. They all complemented each other really well. The ensemble is really what made it as well.
Absolutely what made it. I also had a little crush on Eddie too.
Yay.
Oh, they were all so funny. Corey was such great, timing and was such a good character.
Yeah.
And had his own spin-off show because of it.
Totally. What's interesting too is Nickelodeon and Disney kind of did this a bit where they had the conniving younger sibling who was outwitted and outsmarted almost everyone else. I think Corey's whole stick was that he was a businessman trying to find the
He
next
was a
venture.
genius. He was like an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
inventor, doing all like scheming, and the same, like Miranda Cosgrove, who
Yeah.
was like the like kind of evil, smart younger sister who then had her own spinoff show, iCarly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like they did it, but they did it so well. It was just like they mastered that type of role. Did you have, Dylan, when watching the show, any fantasy of wanting to be able to see in the future, or was there any aspects of that?
That I did. I would do the like my head would go to the side and go to the eye, and I'd like do that at school. I would just like her isms. I would take them on and wanted to. I like my dream was to be her best friend. Like I'm like. Like one of her music videos was called Backflip, and it was like, I want to see a backflip, cartwheel, don't be cut. And then I was like, I can do a backflip. I want to be her best friend. I want to beat her into a backflipper. Like that was like my big fucking dream.
Hey, never ends, man. You can still find her one day.
Hey. Maybe I'll do a backflip for her someday soon. But yeah, that was truly like one of my big icon star shows. And her music too. She came out with really good music, some call it magic. And the theme song was great. And she like had a bunch of songs that me and my brother would listen to. She like covered Under the Sea.
Oh yeah.
Disney
and then Cheetah Girls.
Stuff.
I forgot
Cheetah
about Cheetah
Girls, of
too.
course. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Dang.
So she did a lot of things that me and my brother just were obsessed with.
Ate it up.
We ate it up.
Do you have any specific Raven, That's a Raven episode moments or moments that you remember? Like when you think about the show, anything that initially comes to mind?
So many things. But so much of the physical comedy, I'm realizing, there was like one where she was allergic to mushrooms and her face puffed up. And like she didn't realize her face was puffing up, and then she saw, and then she looked at the camera just like, ah! It just like screamed.
Yeah.
And that moment for me and my brother, we like rewinded it 5 times to see it, to just watch it, because it was so funny to us.
Yeah.
We were so obsessed with it. Whenever she just like went in disguise as a big character, like she played her mother and came in as her mother with like ridiculous glasses and a huge suit. We were just obsessed with that whenever she went in disguise and played a big character. We were like laughing so hard.
That's awesome. I love that. One thing I also love about the show, we talked a bit about like the fantasy as a kid of wanting superpowers or to be able to see in the future. And what I think the show did a good job of it is kind of explaining that it's not always what it's cracked out to be. And that like sometimes, be careful what you wish for, right? Because sometimes like these little things can have negative effects, or you can be the reason that these things don't work out, right? When you think about your future.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it's the vision itself that makes it a little that like causes you that to happen.
Totally. And her trying to avoid the vision makes it happen, or it's out of context in the show.
It's a very Macbeth kind of like, the 3 witches of like kind of predicting the future. It's very, yeah. I didn't look into it like that, but yeah.
And here we are at 14, just soaking it all in or whatever,
Exactly.
That's awesome. Well, Dylan, one of the things that I have loved so much, I remember I was taken away with in your performance, and then have also seen you do it a few times online, is your Lin-Manuel Miranda impression and bit and things like that. So let's talk about the lovable Lin-Manuel Miranda. What do you love about him, and what was your intro to him and his work?
Oh my God, I love Lin so much. I really do. I love him. He's a very divisive figure right now, but I just think like he is. I'm literally tearing. Oh my God, cut this part. I'm literally tearing up thinking of. Oh my God, I'm gonna get dragged. No, but I truly like cliche. But the first introduction to him was Hamilton, and seeing it, and I was just so taken aback by like how ingenious like the show was. I would during my shot, I remember I was like tearing up because I'm like, oh my god, this juxtaposition of like this genre of music with like the lyrics and then the plot of this show is just like it was so masterfully crafted, and every single number to me really was so spectacular. And usually in a musical there will be like one number that you're like, oh, that number, that really one like really struck me. For Hamilton, every number is like that. Every number is like a real masterpiece. And I was just so blown away by it and by him, and just him like like employing so many people of color to play these parts, and I think giving a lot of opportunities to a lot of young talented people of color that deserve it. And there's so little I mean, Broadway is so white. It is so not diverse at all.
Mm-hmm.
And him, what also he did like another show well, the movie I saw in the Heights was the first time I saw in the Heights, and I was just the music was so beautiful. Like the music is so good in that show, and the show is beautiful. And he also at that show like gave a lot of opportunities to people of color that wouldn't have that opportunity. There are so little parts on Broadway for like people of color, really. Like there, and so I think for him to like open it and do that for a lot of people was inspiring to watch too. And also just the way he writes musicals, and his songs are so poignant and beautiful, and I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed. I love him.
Yeah.
You know, I really do. I do the impression out of a place of love.
Yeah. You said a lot, and I want to make sure I touch on it. You know, I think.
Sorry, I just like went on.
No. So that wasn't a complaint. I just like there was like 3 or 4 follow-up questions that came to mind, so I want to make sure I touch on all of it because I think it's very powerful. But you mentioned at the start of that you saw Hamilton. Did you go in with any knowledge of him, or was it after the show like I need to learn as much as I can about who created this and what this was?
Yeah, I mean, I saw it, way after the hype. So I was like, let's see if it's, all it's cracked out to be.
Yeah.
Even just in my school, like everyone talking about Hamilton, talking about Lin. So I knew the show was a big deal. I knew he was a big deal, but I came in with those expectations and was still blown away.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you, at that point, did you like research more about him and his career? Like what made you like invested with him as opposed to Hamilton as a whole,
Yes. Well, when I started around the time I saw Hamilton, I started to really get into comedy, and he was someone who was just like, I was listening to interviews of like a lot anyways. So I'm like, might as well like learn him because I'm kind of obsessed with him.
Yeah.
So I kind of like tried to learn his cadence, his voice, the way he sounds. Not like just like a very exaggerated version, I'd say, like piece of how he sounds and in Hamilton and like when he's performing. But that's kind of how I got obsessed with him and learned his impression.
No, that's good. That's good. You also mentioned, In the Heights, and I know he's done some stuff since then, both with like Tick, Tick, Boom and the soundtrack for Encanto. But did you see Tick, Tick, Boom?
I saw Tick, Tick, Boom. It was so good.
It's so fucking phenomenal. I think,
I loved it. Yeah. Oh my God. It was so, I thought, I was listening to the original Tick, Tick, Boom soundtrack and then this movie soundtrack. I love what they did with Louder Than Words, the closing song. Yeah. They did like a new orchestration on it, which was all, how can I be blanking on his name right now? Because he's so brilliant. He does all of Lin's shows, all of the orchestrations. But he did such a beautiful job with the music there. I thought the direction was beautiful. I thought Andrew Garfield did a fucking phenomenal job with Jonathan Larson.
Unbelievable.
And yeah, I think like, the show Tick, Tick, Boom never made it like, it was just off Broadway.
Yeah.
Rent was like the big smash. And like, I thought the way that it was like a show in the show, I thought it was great. And it's like it's a show about being a creative. It's a show about being an artist, and it's like for people who like, it really hits deep with people who like are trying to create.
I think we talked about it a bit ago that generally music theater has a sound, and we're talking about we'll get to Menken and Schwartz here in a bit, but I think like this is one of the things that I love about when I was talking about you and your work, but same with like Lin-Manuel Miranda, is that like there is something that's unique to this quality, and it doesn't necessarily fit the tropes of what was previous music theater, right? If you were to put, Hamilton and In the Heights next to a Pippin or next to Wicked, they're two completely different entities, right? And so I think like I love the unique style that it's also opening up the doors for what musical theater, especially musically, what it can be,
what it can sound like, and what it can be, and the people the stories it can tell.
Yeah, totally. And the blending of cultures, like you mentioned, and I think just the sonics, I think from all of it, it's exciting. I mean, we get some of that in like stories like West Side Story, right? There's like a little bit more musical embellishment in some of that stuff. But yeah, this is like the first time that we've had like a new creator in that space where I'm just like,
like
this
written
is new
by someone who's like, it's their story. And yeah, it's I'm very inspired by them.
Yeah. One last question in regards to the impression aspect of it. Did you try it once amongst friends and they're like, hey, that's actually pretty good? Or what was the like inception as you were kind of like workshopping that?
I first tried and I wasn't very good at it. I was like really good, but I was so determined to get it. And I think I was like, it was a little lower like this. But then like for me, like what it really hit, I was like, I need to do it higher. Like, I am not thrown away, ma. Like, it's like a little like, if it can be like, I am not thrown away, ma. Shut. Like if it could be like higher in my register, then it really hit.
Yeah.
And that's when I feel like, and then like I tried to think of, okay, I have a Lin impression. What's a fun place to put Lin in this impression?
Michael Bublé Christmas album is
exactly. And I thought like a Christmas to it, like what's something like Lin like in Hamilton is so like intense and like very pointed, and what's a fun place to juxtapose that? Like a Christmas song that's very like fluffy and light, and then to put Lin over that is like, I think, a fun juxtaposition.
Do you know if he's ever seen anything you put out there?
I do. So I like sounded like him. I do. I know because it was because I performed at a club called Caroline's in New York. And afterwards we were all hanging out. And one person who was in the audience who was at Tick Tick Boom, who was like in the movie Tick Tick Boom, was like, oh my God, so I saw your Lin-Manuel Miranda video online and I showed it to him and he told me he thought it was funny. I was like, shut the fuck up! I can die! It meant a lot. I really want him to, so
that's so cool.
That's how I know. But yeah, I really do it out of a place admiration and love for him.
Yeah, I that's so cool. That's so special that's even able to happen. I think, prior to the internet, that would be like almost impossible, like for a lot of this stuff to happen.
Yeah, unless it was on like, a late night thing or something. There's no way you'd see that. But I know the internet has opened a lot of doors for, it's really cool.
Right. I mean, it's how I was even able to see, well, I saw yours live, but I mean, even like some of the stuff after the fact, like, like it's how we were able to connect too. So it's awesome that works.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well,
totally.
Let's get on to this next one here. Sir Elton John. Tell me a bit about Elton and what you love about Elton and how he's influenced you.
Fucking love Elton John. I love him. I am very inspired by him because my family loves him. My dad loves him. My mom loves him. And Candle in the Wind was like one of my favorite songs growing up. And our family loved Your Song and just his great hits. They just love Elton John. And it was music I grew up around playing. But then when I got into music school, I really, really loved I wanted to like learn his songs, like how he plays it. So I like found online transcripts of how he actually plays his song. And he is a virtuoso piano player, like virtuoso, like the runs he does, like that is not normal. Like, so I printed out the way he played the piano, and I like learned exactly how he played Candle in the Wind, Your Song, Benny and the Jets. And I think it really like it just like gave me so much respect for his virtuosic piano playing and his, like as an instrumentalist, and it informed like the way I play piano, the way I try to write songs. You know, a lot of people will be like, "Oh, that was very Elton John," you know, very Elton John kind of riff, and it's like because I really studied the way he played the piano, and he's like one of the best. So I love his music so much.
Yeah. Is that what else was kind of being played in the household when you were growing up? Was there a variety, or what did your family like to listen to?
Oh, total variety. I remember like my mom and our family, we loved Pink, you know,
Yeah.
too. We loved the Misunderstood album. We loved it. What else do we Beatles, like classic stuff. A lot of 70s music. So I really did like disco. I like Donna Summer that was being played. My dad loved James Taylor, so because he plays guitar. So I really like James Taylor, Jack Johnson.
So music is integral in your household, which is awesome.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally.
So when you were growing up, I know you played piano mostly. It sounds your brother got into oboe at some point, but throughout school, did you perform in any of like the school ensembles, or what did you do in terms of like any sort of performing up until you decided to go to school for composition?
Yeah. Performing wise, you know, I was in like the jazz band of our school, marching band, pep band. So I was playing trumpet for that. And also, you know, we had our lessons with our teacher and we do like our yearly recitals, and that's when we'd perform then. But
did you like that experience growing up? Like in marching band and that stuff? I did it too. That's why I'm asking. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. It was fun. I made friends there. It wasn't honestly my favorite thing, to be honest. Like playing trumpet, I feel like I was okay at it, but trumpet is a painful instrument. And it's like when you're in the jazz band, you're not getting like the cool melodic saxophone parts. You're getting like you're just getting a bunch of hits. Like you just play like one note. And it sounds kind of funky and like crazy, even if you're playing it right. Yeah, that was kind of I played in the pit band for like Little Shop of Horrors. I was second trumpet there, so I would play music at school, but I was like too shy to like really start in the musical, and it wasn't until senior year me and my brother like did a talent show thing where we sang because we were
cool.
We were pretty shy.
Yeah. How was that? Tell me about that experience.
Oh my God, it was so much fun. Yeah. I'm still trying to chase that high. You know? Yeah. We sang like a duet that our friend wrote, and super fun and supportive crowd, and I'm still trying to chase the high I felt playing that duet with my brother.
Do you have any aspirations to do more with your brother collaboratively, or is this something that you guys are like, we found our own things and it's just kind of like we like what we are doing separately?
Yeah, it's funny because like we are really kind of doing our own things. Max is really doing oboe, but I really love doing videos with him, and I've written a pilot about him and our relationship growing up as two gay twins, and how we're very different but also very similar, and how I'm trying to get him to do comedy a little bit so we can do stuff together. And I think it could be super fun. People love twins. Like people are like, oh my God, twins. Like, oh my God, I have a funny story. Outside of Fun Home, I saw Fun Home, so moved by it, and the little girl I was like so impressed by, and we had just gone to Dylan's candy store, and she was kind of like giving people candy and like talking to them about it. I was like, I'm gonna give her candy, like not realizing that like me, like a 20-year-old, like it's a really bad look, like I'm gonna give this girl like the candy, she doesn't know if it's weed or not. So she came up to me, I was like, oh my God, I have candy, do you want it? And then she was like, oh, yeah, let me. And then she gave it to her mom to throw away. But then she realized that I was with a twin. She was like, oh my God, are you guys twins? That's so cool. Then she lightened up when she found out that I was with my twin brother. Yeah. But at first I was such a freak being like, you want some candy? You know?
The only thing creepier is if you pull up in a white van, like, come here, little girl, I have candy.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. I was like, how can I not fucking see that? I was just so excited to see her.
Yeah, something similar happened to me, and I didn't like no confrontation, but I didn't realize it that it was potentially weird until after the fact, where I was leaving work at an office gig, and across the street was like a baseball field, and it was like there was a ton of traffic. And like I was checking my phone, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna take me 2 hours to get home. I'm like, I guess I could just watch this little league baseball game for a little bit, you know? And then like I'm just there, and then they're like, who's that strange man over there just watching these little kids play baseball? You know, he's not a parent or any of this. And I had like had to check myself and be like, wait a minute, I should probably not do this at the moment, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, this got very distracted from Elton. Sorry, Elton, that you had to hear this baseball. That's on me. Yeah. But so tell me, I know that you were like kind of learning his playing and things like that. Was there one that you loved playing the most? I know you mentioned Candle in the Wind. What are some of the songs that I think you would still love playing today, or that you played the most? Was your fur-elise,
absolutely,
you know, of learning the piano later?
Absolutely, I have a fur-elise for Elton. Candle in the Wind is definitely one. Mm-hmm. Your Song is definitely one, but my favorite is Leave On. Because that piano intro into Leave On is just so fucking gorgeous, and I play it all the time just to myself.
Awesome. And have you seen him live at all?
No, I really want to.
Oh, well, you might be able to catch him because he seems to have a never-ending farewell tour. So
he does.
I'm sure he'll come through.
I hope he keeps farewelling.
Yes.
I really hope he keeps farewelling.
Awesome. Well, we'll get to the last one, and I'm sure we've touched on both of them here in some minor capacities here. But Alan Menken, Stephen Schwartz, tell me, what do you love about them, and how have they inspired you in your work?
Absolutely. So already touched on Stephen Schwartz, and Pippin was the first show, and I was also very moved by Pippin, and the songs there, Morning Glow, the So Beautiful. I love Alan Menken because he's like the soundtrack to so many people's childhoods, including like probably yours, and he composed music for Pocahontas, for Little Mermaid, he also did Little Shop of Horrors when he was doing Broadway, but he also did like Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast. I'm missing one, I think. Hercules too.
Sure.
Like he is just Enchanted later in 2008. I think it hits you in a very specific space, not just because it's very nostalgic. I really love how he blends into each genre so seamlessly. A lot of composers, you know, like Stephen Schwartz, who I love, they have a sound, which is very, you know, you can kind of feel that sound, and it's a great, amazing sound. Alan Menken can really like lose himself in a genre, you know. He like Hercules, he really loses himself in a specific genre. Little Shop and bebop music, he really got into that, into like Alan Menken can really get into a fun genre.
Or even like all the Little Mermaid stuff too, you know. I think,
Little Mermaid, but also his ballads, like those ballads for them, like they hit you in such a beautiful, like warm place in your heart, and they're just so gorgeous, and he's definitely a big inspiration of mine.
Yeah, all of those Disney moments, I think, have that titular moment where it's like, this is the character's long lost dream, you know, or like their aspiration.
It's your part of your world. I want to be with, or Beauty and the Beast moment. Your moment of like a whole new world. Like it's those ballads that just like really, that's my favorite part of.
What's the Hercules one?
That's my favorite Menken songs.
Go the Distance.
The Hercules songs. I will find my way. I can go the distance.
Yeah.
Or
beautiful.
I Want songs.
What's crazy is that the two of them have worked on, you know, some of those even together. They've
worked together on Pocahontas
and Hunchback, I believe, as well.
Hunchback of Notre Dame. Oh my God.
Yeah.
They've collaborated together, and like Colors of the Wind was one of my favorite ones growing up too.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful stuff. Well,
Beautiful stuff.
one of the things, Dylan, that I think is like, I touched on it a little bit ago, but is kind of hearing how these influences have kind of helped craft the unique creator that you are, right? I love that the humor, you're so fucking hilarious, right? And then on top of that, you can pull these different influences from your composition world, from playing Elton John and playing the Stephen Schwartz stuff, and so all of that. And I think it's so cool of how that comes through. But before we let you go, Dylan, we do ask everyone on the show 5 rapid fire questions before we go. So the first one here, Dylan, if you could be on any reality TV show, which one would you choose?
Oh my God. I would want to be like someone's gay friend on Real Housewives.
I love that.
or Bad Girls Club, because I really love that show.
Yes. That's perfect. Okay, if people have never consumed any of your pop 5, what's the one that you'd want them to go experience right now?
Lin-Manuel Miranda, right now. Do it.
Go do it right now. Do you have a favorite onstage moment or performance? What comes to mind?
Oh my God. Oh, from Wicked, probably.
Yeah.
Or, oh my God, no. Color Purple, Cynthia Erivo, actually.
Okay.
That's
perfect.
incredible.
Perfect. What about for yourself? Do you have one from your own performance, favorite onstage moment or performance?
Doing my solo show and then getting standing out at the end. That was really cool.
That's amazing, man. That's something to definitely be proud of.
It was cool. Yeah.
Awesome. And last question here. What advice would you give a past version of yourself?
Oh my God. Past version of myself. I would tell myself, just come out earlier. Cause life got better after I came out, and I would just try to tell myself to do it earlier, but I'm not sure if I would have even been ready. I think it was like around the time when it was like right. But I would try to tell myself that, but I'm not sure if I actually would have, because it happened when it was like supposed to happen. But I'm realizing I wouldn't have listened to myself. I would have been like, no.
How did that work?
No, are you kidding me?
You mentioned your brother had a similar experience. Did you guys come out around the same time, or was there separation?
He was the first person I came out to.
Oh, wow.
And the way it happened, I was in a car and I was like, most porn I watch is of guys. And he was like, oh, same.
Wow. That's so crazy. And then how did you share with like your parents or anything at that point? Like, was it separate in terms of that journey?
Separate with parents, but everyone else, it was a duo coming out.
Wow.
We came out as a duo.
What a story. Yeah. Well, Dylan, anything you want to promote at the moment? Anywhere people can follow you? How can people support you?
You can follow me on Instagram at DylanAdler_, on Twitter at DylanAdler6, on TikTok at DylanAdler7.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for doing this. It was really such a pleasure. I'm so thankful, and
this was a pleasure.
Forever be a fan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ryan. You're amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
That'll do it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening. If you liked Dylan and want to hear or see more, he has a few shows coming up for album recording that he's doing for a show that he did throughout this past year. Those dates are on June 24th and June 25th, but you can also check out all of the details on his website, dylanaadler.com, or on any of his social media platforms. If you want to support our show, you can always follow us on Instagram at MyPop5, or of course, just keep listening. We're super thankful. We'll see you next week, but until then, what's your Pop 5?